Hey, what's up, everybody? We're gonna do a live right here, right? Now I'm looking at myself. I should have shaved today. Getting old looking here. How's everybody doing? All right. We're gonna talk about Akashic records, past lives, what's the difference, and all that kind of stuff, and maybe how those experiences that our soul's been through affect us today. So I'm coming to you live from my phone, like I usually do, and I have the computer up so that I can read some of this stuff as we go through and answer any questions that we might have. As always, give a wave, say hello, and let me know that you're here. Just say hello. If you have any questions, put them down, and then we'll get into this. We're gonna have some fun. How's everybody doing out there? I haven't been live in a couple weeks. It's been pretty busy around here. I've been redoing the back room that's over here, the room I'm sitting in, finally getting the garage organized. I'll tell you what I was not in a past life, is somebody who knew how to organize things. And if I was, I wish that it carried on to this lifetime. It would be a lot easier for me to do things. I have zero ability to do that, to organize things. It's terrible. All right, Akashic records. So Akashic records were first talked about by this medium called Edgar Casey. Edgar Casey is known as the sleeping psychic and the American prophet. He's a gentleman that was alive back in the early 1900s. He had some incredible psychic abilities. Basically what would happen is he would go to sleep and do readings for people for medical reasons. So if you went to Edgar Casey and you said, I've been to my doctor and they don't know what's wrong with me, he would lay down on a couch, go into a trance state, and he would give you a medical diagnosis. Now, of course, back in the early 1900s, people were not as accepting of these sorts of gifts as they are today. And Mr. Casey actually got arrested 2 times for practicing medicine, basically, right? But then people were really finding out, like, if this guy said something, it was super accurate. So that's Edgar Casey. So even he would give people remedies that they could do at home, because a lot of times, back in the Great Depression, people didn't have money to go to the doctor, and there wasn't the healthcare that we have today. So they would ask him for advice, and anything that you could think of, he pretty much gave advice on. You should definitely check out his story if you have time to read. The American Prophet is the name of the book that I think you should check out. It's really neat. And how that relates to the Akashic records is he is the first person to talk to us about the Akashic records, which I thought was really cool. And basically how he described the Akashic records was that up right above the earth, out where I just imagine the ozone layer is, that there's this ethereal book place. I think we call them libraries, but it's like it's just ethereal, and it has librarians and people up there who are watching it. And in each one of these books that's stored up there is each of our soul's memories. But it's not just what has happened, it's what has happened, what is happening right now, and what happens in the future. And one of the things that he would talk about was going into this mystical library called the Akashic and understanding the ailments that people have today, based on things that happened to them in the past life, which is really interesting to me. And it got me on my own journey to learn about these things. And I had tapped into this sort of thing a couple times during readings, and it was very by accident, to be very frank. I was seeing things that I didn't understand. It wasn't coming from deceased, and it wasn't coming from my own knowledge. It was coming from the person who I was sitting with. And I was understanding deeply about things that they were afraid of, or things that were bothering them, things that were affecting them in their life now. And as I go, of course, I talk to people about these things, and I hear different stories of how people have had Akashic record readings, and even so far as to have physical ailments removed from them in this lifetime, things that were bothering them. I've even heard of one case where a gentleman was down to a couple months to live due to alcoholism, and this mark on his soul was cleared through an Akashic record reading, and within a couple months he had made a full recovery, whereas the doctor had given him the prognosis of death in several weeks, and he today is fine. He's out there and he's changed his life, and he no longer feels that draw for substance abuse and all of that, and if he does, he has it very well under control. So I think that's really awesome. And now is very detrimental, since everybody's kind of stuck inside and we're all kind of maybe imbibing a couple drinks here and there, right? We're all adults. So the Akashic Records is really interesting to me. I heard another case, and I'll share that with you real quick. This woman was born with terrible psoriasis. And for anybody who doesn't know psoriasis, right, that is just that red scaly skin all over a person's body. Sometimes it's in patches in the elbows and the neck and stuff. But a lot of times it is something that affects your whole body. So this woman had this, and she decided to go do a past life regression and end up getting an Akashic reading. And what happened is, with the reader that she was with, the gentleman said, why don't we go back to the last lifetime that you can remember, and we'll go through your life and what it was like, and then we'll see if that has any effect on what is happening to you today. So they did that, and the woman goes back into the early 1800s, and she talks about being a lady of the night, shall we say, is a polite way. She said that the men that she dealt with were very abusive. She knows that she was out somewhere in the Midwest, and she had zero pleasant dealings with other human beings. She worked as a sex worker for money, right? And we know that especially all of us who watch paranormal shows, especially Ghost Adventures, they're always in places like that. And we know that those sort of spirits have a lot of issues. So this woman is reincarnated now, and she has this problem. They're talking about her life there, and it was bad. So he says, okay, let's fast forward through your life to the time that you pass. That's the time that your soul leaves your body and you're going home. So she says, okay. And they go to the very last breath that she takes and the very last thought. And the regressionist says, what's the very last thought that you have? And she says, I never want to be touched by another human being. The next life that she can remember is coming here into this lifetime, and she's born with psoriasis from the day she's born, and she never ever has somebody that is intimate with her, that loves her, besides maybe her mom and dad or brothers and sisters, but no other human being outside of her family would come near her because she was so horribly afflicted by this skin problem, right? So the Akashic record, where it is different than the past life regression, is this doctor, this guy who was a doctor and a hypnotherapist and all these other amazing things, says, okay, we're going to clear this from your soul. So they do a couple sessions, and apparently they take it, they deal with the issue that she had, and she clears up. Not 100%, but like 90% of her body clears from the psoriasis. Now, this is really important. Everybody who's watching this knows that I am very practical and down to earth about how I feel about mediumship, psychic abilities, and these sorts of things, right? So something that's really important to me is that you know that I'm saying always go to your doctor. I always go to my doctor. It's very important, whether it's for physical health, mental health, spiritual health. Believe it or not, a lot of doctors will talk to you about that kind of stuff if you need help in that way. So make sure that you're not just running off to the neighborhood spiritual shop and thinking that blowing sage on your body and getting a reading is going to fix all of your problems. It won't. It's a piece of the puzzle, right? The triangle, right? That I always say, right? Mind, body, spirit, right? We all know that. It's a part of every human being's experience. So that's the Akashic records, right? So imagine I put up this post last night because I forget what I was thinking about, but I was feeling a certain kind of way last night. And I said, I wonder how people feel about their lives today, and how possibly their lives prior to this, if you believe in that, affect them today. And since I was a little kid, there are certain things that I always knew I liked, I wanted to be, and what I thought life should be, right? And I think we are all born with that sort of expectation. So one of the things that I always felt that I wanted to do was be a police officer. Since I was like 5, and it wasn't just because I don't have any cops in my family. There's nobody in my family in law enforcement. I'm it, and I knew since I was little it was something that I felt like I wanted to do. So I worked very hard to get to that point. But also on the flip side of it, I always had this strange feeling that once upon a time, in another lifetime, that I was also a police officer and that I was murdered. And not to go too deep into that, but it's just something that's sort of stuck in here, and it's a strange feeling to see something that I've never experienced in that capacity in this lifetime. So I feel that possibly in another life I probably was a police officer, and I probably wanted to do that again because it was a fulfilling thing for me to do. And as many of you know, I like to help people. It's part of who I am. So that was important to me. Now, I shared another thing the other day, last night on my post was a lot of times my parents go on cruises. My sisters like to go on cruises. However, I don't think that I want to go on one. I've never been on one. And anytime somebody asks me, I say, well, it's because boats sink, ships sink. They just do. And then people are like, they don't really sink, but yeah, they sink. Even up until recently, a couple of years ago, remember that Italian boat captain, and he wrecked the ship off the coast because he got too close to the shore and it capsized the thing. So I had this crazy dream, which we should talk about soon too, is all these quarantine dreams people are having. It's pretty wild, all the things that are going on out there. Sorry, I'm looking at all of you too. So I had this dream that I was on a ship. My current family was there, because this is a dream, right? People who are comfortable and I'm comfortable with are there. And I have this dream that the ship is sinking and my family gets taken onto a ship and they're whisked away. Like, they're fine. But I'm still on this ship that's going down. And there's this crystal blue water all around me I could see. I see like a pot of whales over on the side. Now, whales are not scary, right? I am afraid of whales. Don't know why. It's a weird, irrational fear to be afraid of whales, but I am. Anyway, so I'm like looking out at the ocean. I see a pot of whales, and I'm like instantly like afraid of them. Maybe that's something else I should look up in my Akashic records, right? So anyway, and there's another ship there while the one I'm on is going down, and I reach my hand out for help. And the captain of the other ship is like, no, I'm not going to help you. And he didn't speak English, or I didn't speak the language he spoke, whatever it was. And basically I was left to go down on the ship, and it was pretty terrifying. I know that I was a man, at least, but I don't know too many of the details of it, except for that. So that was very strange for me. And I think that it plays a part in my fear of big open water now. I don't mind getting on like a little canoe or a raft and going out in the lake or whatever, anywhere I could still see the land I'm good with. And I have been pretty far out. For anybody who doesn't know, I live in New Jersey, right near the bay. So, the bay is not a big deal. Open ocean, not a fan. I'm not going to go on any fishing expeditions anytime soon. So that's some of the interesting things that I think about with the Akashic records. Now, people are asking me about past life regression. So past life regression is more like you come in and you say, I want to have a past life regression. You get laid down on a couch or a comfortable chair, and somebody basically does hypnosis to you. They put you in a very relaxed state, which would be, my hair's crazy, a meditative state. And then they extract information from you through questioning and guiding you. So they would put you to sleep, and they'd say, okay, just like I talked about with the doctor speaking to the woman with the psoriasis, let's guide back to where your last lifetime, and then you go back there. So that's just it. And then they'll say, where are you? What year do you think it is? What's your name? All that kind of stuff. Akashic records more falls on the person doing it. So you would lay down in front of us, and I would say, let's get into that meditative state. And I would do, as if I was going to do a reading, speaking to somebody who's deceased, I would put myself in the meditative state as well, and basically read your soul, And the only thing I could say is that the reason I don't do it, and it kind of just happens during readings, is because to me you need to have a certain amount of rapport with the person that you're doing the reading for. You have to know that the person that you as the client are entrusting the other person with is giving you information that's good. So again, being that I always like to have validation during a reading. Like, we know that anybody who's had a reading by me, I will bring points of validation that cannot be argued. They're a fact from your life, or the person who is deceased is bringing me facts from their life, and it's irrefutable proof that I'm speaking to them, or I'm understanding what they're talking to me about in your life that's happening, right? So once I have that rapport, then you understand that when I lay you down in front of me and I talk to you about your Akashic records, and I give you details about a life that you've lived, and things on your soul, that you know that it's true, because there is no irrefutable proof. Now, I could always say, like, I had a woman who gave me a quick Akashic record reading. She's very nice. And she basically was like, you're afraid of tight spots too. And as a child, I was, like, bad. It was not a good feeling for me to be in spots that were tight. But as a kid, nobody likes to be held down or put in a closet or any of that kind of stuff, right? Even when you're just playing. Like, that was one of the things. I never liked wrestling with my friends because I'm not a good fighter, first off, in that kind of capacity. So if they knocked me down and pinned me down, I kind of gave up, and I'd never liked that feeling. So basically this woman picked up on that, and she doesn't know me. And she was just talking to me about it, and she's like, then she's mentioned to me about liking to work on motors and stuff and mechanical stuff. Now, this lifetime, I'm not very mechanical. As a kid, as a teenager, I really was into cars, like, a lot. I like to learn about them and understand them and see how the way they work. So I got it up here, but I don't as much like to apply it. So she was talking to me about that, and she says, back probably sometime in the 20s, you were probably 14 or 15, and you got pinned underneath a large piece of machinery while you were working on it, and it crushed you to death. And that, like this, sent a signal through my body, like, whoa, that is solid truth. I'm even getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. Yes, that makes so much sense to me. Did we clear it? No, because it's not much of a problem now. I'm a pretty big, strong guy. I'm not worried about anything pinning me down or holding me down. And I learned how to fight since I was a kid. Always got to learn how to defend yourself. So that was something that was really a big truth to me. And I think that I trusted her because she had talked to people on the other side for me, and that she was giving me the truth. She was validating. So when she said that to me, it struck, and I knew that that was truth. So that is important. And people ask me to do readings for them in that capacity, but I want to make sure that you understand that you have to have the trust. It has to be there. And that's for me too, because I can't go telling people, you passed away such and such way, or you had this kind of life where life was miserable for you the whole time, and then them just be like, yeah, this makes so much sense, and really they're just trying to fit the pieces together. Because if, again, me, I don't like doing that. I always say, if it doesn't line up, it will line up, but if it doesn't make any sense, please don't placate me. Tell me this doesn't make any sense, so that way I can try to understand what I'm seeing better, or give you better information based on what I'm picking up, right? So with Akashic record reading, there's no room for error, in my opinion. There's a lot of responsibility with it, because we have to make sure that we're doing the service correctly, and picking up on things. So I'll tell you one that I did recently. I was in a large kind of meditative group, and this woman was a couple spots over from me, and with my eyes closed, I'm watching this woman as a soldier, probably during either World War I or World War II, and she's being placed on her knees and executed by the enemy soldier. And she's executed. This soldier does not fight back, and is thrown into a mass pit in the woods, just thrown into a pit with other soldiers. And boy, when I got out of that meditative state, I asked her if it was okay to talk to her. And I explained to her exactly what I just said to you. And one of the interesting things that was going on in her life now is I explained to her, I was like, I think that, you got put into this mass grave and nobody came for you. And if they did, they wouldn't know where to look. Unmarked grave, enemy lines, all that kind of stuff, right? And I asked her, I was like, do you have like abandonment issues now? And as I'm talking to her, I could feel it, like it just pulling out of me. And she said, yeah, I have very bad abandonment issues. And I said, and I also was just like, I think like your knees, what's up with your knees? And she's a very slender person. So this is interesting because somebody my size, I'd say, oh, of course, if I say, do you have bad knees to me? Like, yeah, I got bad knees. I was in the military. I don't take care of myself. I'm overweight. My knees kill me all the time. But to this slender young woman, I said, your knees hurt a lot. And she said, yeah, as a matter of fact, they do. And they were aching as we were doing the meditation. And I said, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that you got put on your knees and executed in this style. And basically, that pain is there in the knees. There was no fight back. It was a very strange thing to watch, especially for somebody like me, who's, been, like I said, did the military thing, like fighting back. Especially as a Marine, is you fight till you're dead. That's it. You don't get captured. There's no surrender. You just fight until there's nothing left. So for me to watch this and just kind of have to watch a movie basically of this happening was very traumatic to me as well. So I didn't like that feeling of not being able to step in and help that person. But it was their life experience from their Akashic records. So hopefully in the future, after I talked to her about that, she took my number, and hopefully when this is all over, she'll give a call and we can go and see if we can help clear some of that out and remove some of that abandonment issue through talking about it. And I'm not a therapist or anything. I would definitely talk to her and tell her, go see a therapist, somebody who's trained and licensed to do that. But from the spiritual point, we can kind of take a look at it and understand it a little bit better. It's interesting. So that is like some of the biggest neat stuff about the Akashic records. I'm going to pull up some other stuff. If you guys have any questions, I don't know if anybody's commenting. Nothing is coming up on here as far as comments go. I can see that you're all watching, which is, hey, how's everybody doing in quarantine? I hope you're all doing okay. Let's see. Let's see if I can find your pages. We're having a lot of fun. We're talking about the Akashic records. Are you guys able to comment? I don't even know if we can. I'm having a hard time seeing if we can do that. We should be able to. Let's see if I go over here and click on my own live, if I can see it on the computer. I hope you're finding this as interesting as I find it. I really like it. Oh, you guys are commenting. I don't know why I can't see it on my phone for some reason. Hi, everybody. Let's see. I see all of your comments on the live feed here. Yeah, so you can ask questions. I can see it now. I got my computer up and running. Hi, Laura. How are you? Hi, Donna. Oh, yeah, I see you guys all comment. I don't know why it's not. Usually it just shows up in the feed as I'm doing it on my phone. So what do you want to know more about? And again, I have my limited view of what I know of it. But I definitely want to help people understand the difference between the Akashic records and a past life regression. Past life regression definitely lies heavily on the person laying down. And it's one of those funny things like hi Donna. Recently I've been talking a lot about UFOs, aliens, all that kind of stuff. And I think that we watch people who do, what is that called? Like hypnotic regression for extraterrestrial life and like abduction stuff, right? So I don't know that I'm fully on board with any of that, but being closed-minded about it would be silly. But one of the things that really kind of drives me crazy, and even as I was talking to Shelly, we were watching something on TV, she's like, it's weird how they're all the same, right? You hear it and it's all the same. It's like, yeah, they are all the same. Is that because we all have that general idea of what an alien abduction is, and we just have a collective idea of it, or is it because it is actually all the same? And then the person who does the hypnotic regression, like, are they leading too much? Are they asking too many of the questions because they're like, well, let's see if what the aliens look like. Are they gray? They look like mantises, the lizards, like what, like, I don't know if that plays a huge part in it. And that's what I think too about past life regression is, so I'm a 38-year-old man. And I watch a lot of television. I watched television growing up with my dad. So Westerns was a big part of my life. So do I go back? Do I ask about Westerns? I watch a lot of movies. So, about 150 years ago, like, do I talk about Great Britain? Do I talk, like, where were people? Like, there are so many intricacies to being a human being. It's like, how could you, as a hypnotherapist, pull out the information from somebody with your own limited view of what life is? So my life is, I grew up in New Jersey, joined the military, have my job now, and that's my, like, I have a huge life experience, but that's it. I've never, like, I've slightly traveled to different places, so my life experience is different. I can only have a limited amount of vocabulary to ask questions about, right? Now, maybe somebody who's very skilled at hypnotherapy has a much more vast knowledge base of the world, which is a lot of times why they're doctors. They've gone to big universities and they've earned that right to be called that, right? So that's what I hope, but I don't have that skill. I just have my own set of skills, and it's very very interesting to me to be careful of that. And we all have a lot of the same phobias. Like, I see Georgette says, I'm afraid of drowning. Like, yes, I also am afraid of drowning, but does that go back to my dream that I had about being on a ship? If I was on a ship, I assume in a past life, I probably should have been a good swimmer, right? Like, why would I be on a ship and not be a good swimmer? Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was a lower class person who needed work and got on a ship, and that's it. So again, it's just an interesting kind of thing to me. I'm trying to look at everybody's comments. Hey, Lori, how are you? So, like, again, like, common phobias. I'm afraid of spiders. Well, you know what? Human beings are afraid of spiders. They bite you, and a lot of them can get you sick. Snakes bite you, can get you sick, right? Bugs in general, especially in this society, we live in houses that have walls, good walls usually, and we could spray for bugs and keep them out, and we stay in. So we have more of a fear of bugs, right? So, I mean, like, that's part of why I'm very careful about doing the readings. I much prefer when I'm doing a reading or a mediumship session and that information just comes out and we get into it after getting through the other stuff. Because we've built rapport, we've built trust, and you know that I'm not wearing my crystals around my neck and in my Birkenstocks and, just like saying like a bunch of crazy stuff, because we want to be truthful and helpful and not have our camera go out of focus. So what do you guys think about all that kind of stuff? I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm watching your comments too as I'm going on here. It's just a very kind of interesting thing to me. And again, being like truthful and held accountable for it is very important to me. For some reason, I can't really see too many of these things. Let's see if I do this. Hey, Mickey Strange, what's up? So, Gina says her daughter has a fear of volcanoes and loud noises. So that could be attributed to a lot of things. Remember, we have, as human beings in every lifetime, no matter what, evolution has given us something called the fight or flight. Fight or flight is, if you don't know, you're either going to, if you encounter an issue that's physical or mental or whatever it is, you're either going to stand up to it and fight it, or you're going to flight. You're going to run away from it. So if a dinosaur came running down the block, I would run as far and as fast as my fat legs could take me, right? That would be my flight, because I'm not going to fight a dinosaur. It would be ridiculous. I'm just using that obviously as silliness, but that's exactly what it is. It would be silly to try to fight something that large. Now, if another man came down the street and was being a threat, then I would probably stand up to them, no matter who they are or what the deal is, depending on the circumstance, right? And that's not tough guy stuff. It's just to explain the fight or flight. I'm also not running from spiders. I don't like to touch them. I don't want to kill them, but I'm not running away from them in death fear. So that's not a thing. right? So that's one of those things. Like, we're not running from things that we're not all that afraid of. So that's that. And those things are built into us. So being afraid of loud noises, going back to that, yeah, like if something is really loud, these days, like, what do we know that's loud? Airplanes, trucks, earthquakes, cannon. I don't want to say cannons going off, but explosions, things and that is a part of your fight or flight. Like, the human ear knows, like, hey, there's something dangerous happening, and it's built there for a reason, for survival. So for me, it's really important, again, to understand all of that stuff and then say, like, okay, what is this, something that is biological that's happening right now, or is this something that comes from a past life that we have to look for? And I think that's really important to understand. So what other kind of questions you guys got? I like this nice small group. That's why I did it here on this page, first off, because you fine folks took the extra time to find the smaller page and go to it, and we like to talk about all these kinds of things, and I want to do more of this, and I think coming up in the future we are going to do more of this, because the paranormal discussion isn't just about ghosts, and I really want to hit that home. It's very important that we're not just talking about ghosts. We talk about everything. Bigfoot, do we believe in him? I don't know. I know a couple people who I like very much who believe in Bigfoot. I can't say that it's real. I just don't know. I'm trying to read everybody's comments, but this is just being so strange. Let me see if I can do something here. What is this? Oh, interesting. I'm learning too as we go here. Why is this not working? Hey, Matt. Matt's from the Parts group. What's up, Matt? Irina, hi. I met Irina at a Comic-Con. Another life experience, just meeting random people waiting in lines. I like to talk to folks. Sandy's nice. Hi, Sandy. Sandy's out there. She's a first responder doing her thing, riding her ambulance, helping out people who are sick out there. Thanks for going out there and doing that. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Chris. Kelly, what's up? Lori, Rob, Deneen. Hi, Deneen. How are you? It's nice to see all you folks out there. What is happening here? I wish this was working better. I can see everybody saying hi. Okay, there we go. So Alex says, would you do Akashic record readings on kids? Probably not. The same reason why I don't do psychic readings for them either. Because their scope of the world is, in my opinion, too small to understand the things that are put in front of them. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't do something with their parents in the room. And this is, again, I have 2 small children. And first off, my kids are like ferrets. You couldn't keep them still if I wanted to. But it's a lot of responsibility. So you'd have to have a specific reason why you were asking that. And I wouldn't be able to ask you that because I couldn't influence the reading that I was going to do. So yeah, probably not until they were at least 16 or 17 years old, where we could sit them down and be like, look, this is the deal. You don't have to yes me to death. We need to be right. It's either right or wrong. It's binary, 1 or 0. That's it. And I don't think a little kid has that capacity to understand that. So that's cool. So let's see. Suzanne says, whenever I see material that is pink gingham, which is an old-fashioned print on cloth, I get such an emotional reaction. It's over the top, and I can't pinpoint why or what happened, and will come out of the blue if I happen to see a shirt with that print. Now, you see, that's interesting. Now, I don't know how old you are, Suzanne, right? But do we say maybe your grandmother wore something with that sort of cloth and print on it? And as a tiny baby, you remember that, right? And again, I don't know your history or anything. I'm just spitballing, right? But that's like the logical thing that somebody would say, right? But what about in a past life? Did you wear a favorite piece of clothing that was made of that all the time? Did somebody you know and loved wear that all the time? And that's that emotional reaction we just can't put our finger on. And that's sort of what I'm talking about with this kind of stuff. So you know that, and if we were doing an Akashic record reading together, if I had brought that up, first off, I probably would have never brought that up because I don't even know what that is. So it's way out of my scope. But in some way or another, just like spirits talk to me and they give me information, we would have gotten to that through my database in my brain. They would have made that happen. So it's very interesting, right? And I also have a lot of stuff like that, like an emotional reaction to things that I shouldn't have. And I feel deeply about things that I don't understand why I feel that way. And that goes for this as well. Like, I don't know why I felt so compelled at, 32, 33 years old to get heavily into something that was a mild interest for most of my life. Like, something called me to do this. Something pushed me, and it was like putting a pair of gloves on it. It just fit and it worked, and I felt like I knew so much about it out of nowhere. So it's very, very interesting. What did I do in a past life? So I'm typing in there to see if I can get these comments moving a little bit up here. So past life, so Gina says, I believe, so past life is really Akashic Records review. Yeah, it is and it isn't, because your past life is you taking your own book, opening it up, and somebody saying, let's talk about what you're seeing, and you yourself are getting the psychic vision. You yourself are in those shoes again. Whereas when somebody like me does it, I'm just sitting like watching a movie, and I watch what was going on in your lifetime. So that, I hope that makes a little bit of sense. It's just like when we talk to somebody who's deceased and they sit and they say, talk about my 89 Cadillac Eldorado that I loved and I drove it till the bumpers fell off. They would show me that and I would understand what they were talking about, and that would be that. So it's kind of like that. I would just see it. Even though I never had that kind of car and that experience, I would get it. I got it. I understand. So Donna says, my daughter, when she was 2, said she picked us as parents from heaven. That makes me think that past lives are real and old souls exist. I guess she could be a first-time soul, but if you ever knew her, you know she was an old soul. I wonder how many lives she's had since she's so advanced. Right. So that's one of those interesting things too. Like, so I get posed a lot of questions by skeptics, which is cool because I like them to keep me on my toes. And I don't have answers, and I don't pretend to have answers. I just know what I know right now. So one of the things that they say is, how come you do these sort of things and you never talk to the spirits of cavemen? Like, first off, that's 2 million years ago, at least, right? I'm not super up to my archaeological timeline of life on the planet, but it is a very long time ago, and not super long time ago that this form came around, right? Because it evolved from Neanderthal to now, right? Homo sapiens. So I don't have an answer. Do I think that those first early human beings had souls? Yeah. And maybe maybe the guy who invented, or the lady who invented the wheel, their sole purpose was to come here and invent the wheel, and then that soul could go and be done. And that was the hugest advancement since the internet. I mean, that was the next biggest, hugest advancement was the internet, right? So we're not going to need to speak to them. They did their job, and they've moved on. And I haven't done enough past life or Akashic records to ever and dig deep back. And even if I did, would I understand what I was looking at? Like Paleolithical sort of stuff. It wouldn't make a difference to us now, and I would assume that by this time in our life that our soul would have worked out any issues that we had from that far back, right? And that's the same question that people pose for paranormal investigations. Like, you guys go into places and, you see people from 100, 200 years ago, 150 years ago. How come you're not running into dinosaur ghosts? How come you're not running into the ghosts of these Neanderthals and all that? You know what? Maybe we are, but we don't have the frame of reference to ask. And even if we did, and they were an intelligent spirit, would they understand? So the paranormal will always be the paranormal and the supernatural, because we're not supposed to understand it all. And that's why I don't go crazy trying to prove anything to anyone. The only thing that I ever tried to do is prove that what I'm doing, I believe it to be real, and I want you to understand that I'm coming to you from that truthful spot. And I think that that's most people like me, especially if they bring you the kinds of things that I like to bring to the table, right? So the skeptics will always ask good questions, and it's important that we let them be in the groups. And even when they frustrate us and make us mad, if you've had a reading with me, I've always said some of these people, I could walk their deceased grandmother up to them with a fresh batch of her homemade cookies, and they'd be like, you're fake. This is fake. It's fake. It's fake. It is what it is, right? I'm not trying to prove anything to them. They need to find that in their own time, and that's okay. That goes, again, the same thing. We got to keep it practical. It's got to be, to a degree, provable. But it doesn't need to be provable beyond a reason of a doubt, because if we could do that, there would be no mystery in being a human being. There'd be no mystery in life. There'd be no reason for us to even worry about the problems that we have here today. There would be no growth in our soul. The mystery has to be there to have growth. The trial that we're going through right now as society, boy, has it brought out a lot of good in people. Even though we are frustrated every day not being able to go out and do the things that we enjoy and love, especially us here in the United States, are very, and this is not political. This is not political. This is a human being thing. We are just stripped of the things that we're used to being able to do. But it's in the safety of the person who lives to the left and the right of you, and for yourself, right? So we're learning, and we're learning to do more family stuff. We're learning to listen better at home. We're learning to connect better this way, which is an amazing gift that we have, this technology. I couldn't imagine being my son's age, 5 years old, and having to live through this with possibly at 5, I might have had a Nintendo. And that was it, with like 3 games. And, mom and dad stuck at home. You think my dad would have given me the TV remote? No. We would have been watching whatever it is that he wanted to watch. Hence why I know so much about Westerns and all that kind of stuff, baseball, because that's what we watched growing up. And that's cool, because I love my dad. He was a good dude. He is a good dude. He's still here. So anyways, that's kind of like, we're learning. And this is a big growth for the human race. And I actually am really into it, even though I still have to go to work. So let's see. Stacy says, okay, let's read Sandy's first. There's no connection with cavemen with living souls here in the physical world. That's what I think. See? Good opinion. Can't prove it's true or untrue, but it's a good opinion. It makes us think. And Stacy says, perhaps that's why people tell me I have an old soul. I never quite understood that. Now I need to know. And Lisa says, every being has a soul. Yes, every being does have a soul. And when somebody says, like, you have an old soul, that's a good saying. Sometimes we meet people who are very brand new, is a good way to put it, right? So if you're very brand new, that would just mean that maybe you're naive to the world, or you yourself are continuously, like, learning things that maybe seemingly other people kind of instinctively know, which is why I feel like I'm a much older soul, just because I wasn't always feeling that way. I had to learn a lot. I learned a lot growing up. I had lost a parent very young, got very lucky to be adopted into a caring home. I had a child when I was still in high school, very, like, learning, like, you want to have to learn. Like, if I was an old soul, I should have known better to not do that, right? But it forced me to grow up fast in this lifetime. And the further along I get, I'm collecting a lot of wisdom from this lifetime, but I feel like I'm pulling on a lot that I already knew, especially when it comes to this sort of thing about understanding souls and spirits and human beings and connecting deeper, which is really, really important to me. And the older I get, the more important that becomes, and the less important the physical stuff is. Even though I still love my Ghostbusters and my Knight Rider and all that stuff that, is here, pop culture, and like everybody else, I like that stuff. But I truly want to learn more about this, and I want to learn more about the paranormal, but not because I need proof of the other side. I just want to understand the way it's affected me and everybody else better. And once I can do that, then I can help apply that to people who are having issues and help them as best I can with what I've gathered, right? So this is a great time to be alive to do those sort of things. Anyways, old soul, right? So old souls, people tend to come to you for a lot of help. They come to ask you questions. Even if it's not a particular matter that you have ever dealt with, you seem to have some insight on that. And that is an old soul. And as a child, my one daughter, the youngest, I think she's an old soul. She's very understanding of how to get what she wants. And she's only 3. And there's a lot going on when I look at her. It's in her eyes. There's a lot more there than I expect from a 3-year-old. Like my oldest daughter, who's now 20, as a kid, I didn't see that so much. And my son, I always say he's born with his eyes open. He's always observing and watching. So maybe he's a little bit of a younger soul and was kind of surprised to be back here. Like, what am I doing back? I thought this was over. Like, nope. And now you're in this crazy family, so good luck, pal. And somebody said that their daughter said they picked them out before they came here. That's flattering. That is a flattering thing for a little kid to say. Like, I saw you in the window, and I said, that's who my mom and dad are going to be. Man, I would have picked... Who was famous in, like, 1981? Michael Jackson? No, not him. Who else is like, I don't know, maybe Burt Reynolds. Like, if I could have just been like, I'm going to pick somebody, I would have picked Burt Reynolds, the Bandit. No offense, Dad. I mean, you had a cool mustache too, but... Laura said, okay, so I'm going to try to keep up. Deb says, have you ever experienced your confirmation of spirits coming to meet their dying loved ones to help them transition? You know, that's such an old sort of idea that I would just have to say that it is true. Like when you start to transition, that the people that you love most, it's less about them showing up at that time because they're always here, they're always around. It's more of the barrier here in this logical thinking brain. The barrier starts to come down, and you start to see more of what's actually always been there. What's that thing from the Wizard of Oz, right? You didn't have to look too far, just no further than their backyard. It's always been there. They're always there for you. They're always with you. They're always showing love and compassion, help guide you as best they can from where they are. And that goes at that time. So they're always there. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of stock in the fact that those folks are there to greet you and help you transition over, right? Who wants to show up on the other side and be the new guy and have no idea what to do? That'd be embarrassing. So yeah. Lisa says, I believe my kids have been with me over many lifetimes. Yeah, I think that's a thing that happens as well. We travel with the same groups of people. We play different roles in each other's lives and understand that kind of stuff, that we travel with each other. And that goes back to one of my other favorite topics of soul contracts, which we'll talk about another time again. So, I don't want to lose it. As far as the seeing people when they pass, look up Dr. Raymond Moody. I'll post the link up here when we're done. Raymond Moody. He does a thing on near-death experiencers, and he has some fascinating stuff. And he's a medical doctor that had his own experience and then he just went right into it and started researching and writing. It's amazing. Dr. Raymond Moody. Let's see. Deb, have you ever experienced... Yep, that's the one we read. Okay. Laura says, do you feel that we come back to get things right? Basically learn from our mistakes in past lives. I want to say it like this. I don't think that we come back to right any wrong. I think that we pick things that we haven't learned correctly yet. So maybe in a past life, I'll just use myself for instance, maybe in a past life I wasn't a great family man. And I don't think I am now. I'm just maybe better than I was the first go around. And I had to lose a family and gain another one where I was taught that. So my dad was always a really great provider, made sure he was there for the games as much as he could be. My mom always was there. Still, I call her every chance I have a problem. And I call her and I talk to her, and she always has a good listening ear and a lot of love and compassion and guides me as best she can with what she knows. And that taught me to be better. I'm not always the most patient. And I said this to my wife last night. I said out loud, like, God, give me patience, right? And then I was like, oh, never mind. I was like, I know that if you ask for patience, they're going to give you something to be patient over, right? And that is one of those things, like, I have to learn more patience. I very seldom have good patience for things. I like things done like that and be done with it and move on to the next thing. If I have to wait for stuff, I get annoyed. So back in the days of early eBay, you could buy something, it would be to you in 2 weeks, right? And that was just because that was the accepted amount of time. Now you can go on Amazon and in some cases have it the same day, right? Now we're back to, if you order something from Amazon, you're going to have to wait because the essential items have to go out first. So your camera rig or the remote for your Alexa, you don't have it, right? Now I'm not even ordering anything because I don't have the patience to order something and wait for it. So I just don't order it because I'd rather just not have it than have to wait for it. And that is something that I have to learn. So maybe in another lifetime I was very impatient, and maybe I'm still going to be that way and have to come back to learn it again. But I hope that the things that I'm here doing now are satisfying some of the reason why I came here. And again, that could go back to the fact that I feel like in a prior life I was probably law enforcement and had to come here, and I wanted to do it again because I didn't get it right the first time. And who knows? Maybe I was a medium and I didn't. Maybe I was some sort of jerk medium or psychic in a past life, and I got another chance with this amazing gift. And this time, I decided I'm going to do it 100% correct. No shortcuts. It has to be this way or no way. And it took me until I was in my 30s to understand life good enough to do it that way, and it put me on this path that I'm on now. It's a very interesting question, right? Did we get things wrong and we have to do them right? We're human beings. We're always going to do something wrong, but we're always going to do something right as well, right? So we're not perfectly rounded people, and we should always try to be, I guess, right? And that's a little off the paranormal and off the beaten path of what I'm talking about. But yeah, it goes back to that Akashic record sort of thing. Like, what would you want to know about your past life? What would you want to know about what you've been? But this is important about the Akashic record. It's not just then, it's the future as well. And it's not a fortune telling. It's not like that. It's not tarot cards. It's not for this tiny little sliver of time. It is for the large picture of your life, of your soul. So who are you going to be next lifetime, and why, right? And does that have any pull on you now? So this thread that comes out of us, this timeline, the one that's back there as well. This is where you are right now. You're that little bump right in the thread, and then you're going to live your life and pass, and then are you going to come back and go again? And who's at the end of that thread over there? Who knows? Crazy, right? So let's see. Stacy says again, I had my grandfather who passed come to tell me he was lonely, and he was coming to get mom, what he called my grandmother. I was 6 months pregnant. I asked if she would be around to be there for the birth. He told me that it wasn't up to him, but he needs to tell me he would be coming for mom soon. Long story short, she passed 24 hours after I gave birth, and she heard his cry on the phone. So it just shows you they're here with us for sure. And my own grandmother, who passed quite a while ago now, during her lifetime, she had major incidences. I think 2 heart attacks. And she told my mom that before each one of them, her late husband, who had been deceased a very long time, came to her in a dream the night before each one of these and said, "You're not coming home yet. It's not your time." And she told my mom she wanted to go and be with him, but he said, "Nope, not your time yet," and wished her back, and she had to live through those traumatic things. And I was glad because she made a huge impact on me later on in life when she came to live with us. Mostly because she's a good cook. She's 100% Portuguese and made some of the most banging food. Like probably every grandma, right? Just go in the fridge and there's ketchup and eggs in there, and somehow she whipped together a Thanksgiving dinner out of it. Mickey Strange is talking about the theory of consciousness. Yeah, that's another thing that we can just talk about. I mean, what is consciousness? Is it a part of the soul? Is it consciousness just a part of the physical being of a human? And how long does that last? Well, in my opinion, doing what I do through my readings, I believe that consciousness exists far beyond the physical world. And anybody who wants to dispute that, even as a skeptic, there are some scientists out there who do a lot of really good work, and they talk about 13 different dimensions, and they prove it with things I couldn't begin to understand. A lot of math goes into it. And they slowly but surely show us that there are different dimensions past this. So when you say the third dimension, 3D, we go to a 3D movie, the stuff pops out of the screen, and we see things in 3D. Right now, what you're looking at on a screen is only 2-dimensional. But you understand that I am a 3-dimensional being because we exist in the same space, right? But if you know, say you stuck this phone in front of an ant or your tablet in front of an ant, they would only see the object that was in front of them and not understand that there was a lot more going on than what they're looking at, because they don't have that higher thinking that we have. They would just see an object, they got to go around to get food and move on with their ant life. And we don't do that with the phone, because we understand it and we understand the 3 dimension, but we don't understand the 4th, 5th, 6th, and so on, because we're that ant in that scenario. We just don't get it. And that's part of the paranormal investigation as well. Whoop, we're doing laundry.
Patience.
Yeah, you did.
You should chase your daughter around.
So we have that in our lives that we just don't know that that's out there, because we're the ant. We don't understand it fully. But the consciousness definitely continues, because when I speak to people who are deceased, they bring me all kinds of things that I couldn't possibly understand. Hi, Shell. My wife probably asked for a lot of patience in the last lifetime, because she married me. And I'll tell you, there's probably no greater test of patience than not putting a pillow over my face sometimes. So let's see. Yeah, that's very true, Stacy. We are definitely not in charge. We just try to do our best, right? Carol says, I have several friends that feel extremely close to it, as though I've been related to them in many lives. I also experience flashbacks that I can only have come from past lives. Yeah, I totally understand that. I have a bunch of friends. I put a picture of them up on my Instagram story the other day. There's about 10 of us. We've been friends for varying years, but my oldest friend, Chris, since the 3rd grade, which I don't remember what year that was, 92 maybe, and it's 2020. He's one of my oldest friends, right down to all the friends we made along the way, and we're all very tight. And I always said I was born into a family with biological brothers, and I lost them as my mom passed, and I got adopted, and I had 2 sisters in that family. But the people who are very much my brothers, very strongly my brothers, are the people that I made friends with. And we could lose contact I bet you I could lose contact with any of them for 2-3 years and pick up a conversation just like that, like nothing changed. Because I think that we've been through this before together. We're all very tightly bonded, even though we all have little strings of things that relate us now, interests, hobbies, memories, things that have happened together collectively. But I think in the long run, in this big scheme of things, we have been connected together for a very long time in different ways. So yeah, I understand that. Chris Killen says, don't give her any ideas. Let's see. I believe we're living in parallel realities too. Yeah, that's an interesting thing I've been saying to my wife lately, is like, I feel like we're living in an alternate universe right now, because of all the weird stuff that's happened in the last couple years, right? But who knows? Like, I always think in my brain, I'm like, man, did 2 parallel universes just come together and in mishmash? I don't know. Maybe they're messing around with that CERN collider too much down there in the in Switzerland, right? They smashed too many atoms together trying to find the God particle, and they messed us up. See, I'm smiling because that's like a weird, I don't know. Should they be messing with it? Science. I'd like science. I want to know more. They had some kind of theory that they could prove the existence of ghosts with that thing. So I was like, do it. Keep smashing atoms till you find them, because that would be really nice to bring to the Channel 7 news at nighttime. Be like, hey, they found out the existence of ghosts is real at the CERN collider. You can stop looking, because then we got to move on to aliens and Bigfoot. Oh, bye, Nicole. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see. Melanie has a good question. Can you sever energetic ties with somebody even if you are connected through past lives? Yeah, I have a blog about it. ScottyTheNJMedium.com. Energetic ties. If you're not familiar with that, I was just talking about the thin string that connects things. We have that with each other. We have that with objects like this. I've had this. My mom gave this to me. Geez, probably, this is really old. I want to say she probably gave this to me 15 years ago. It's one of the original digital recorders. It probably cost a fortune. and specifically because I had shown such an interest in paranormal investigations back in the day, and this was like the most affordable thing that was on television that you could buy, right? So she went out and got me one, and this thing has been everywhere with me, and I have a very strong energetic tie to it. For me to go throw this in the trash can would break my heart, pretty much. And it's just a silly digital recorder, and I have 4 more of them, but they're not as special because they weren't given to me by my mom for that kind of reason, right? So to cut ties with it, I would have to meditate on it and say why I need to cut ties with it. And that, I'm just using this as something because it was sitting here, but with a person as well. And there are people in my life that I had to cut ties with energetically, specifically like my oldest daughter's mom, who I had a very bad relationship with, even though as kids we thought it was good, it wasn't. And she kept coming in my life and messing it up, like just being there and being a pain in the neck. And I always felt like I owed her something, and I had to do a lot to cut that energetic tie. And I did that, and then I had to, I still took care of my kids. So yeah, you can get rid of those energetic ties, even if, because I believe that her and I, my daughter's mother, probably have been together in other lifetimes and other capacities, because when I met her, it was like meeting somebody I had known forever. But probably I probably shouldn't have known forever, because I think that we never get along in any lifetime. So I hope that answers that question. I hope you guys are enjoying this. We've had a pretty steady viewership of 20 people this entire time, which isn't bad for such a small page, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and just talking about this and listening to it. It's totally interesting to me. Obviously, you can tell that. I'm going to go right here, and I had some comments from the thing last night. There's actually a lot of comments, 47 on that one. So we'll do that, and then I'll wrap it up in a little bit here. But a lot of people had questions about a woman said that she had a memory of being alive in the roaring 20s. So here we are 100 years later, right? She had a memory of being alive in the 20s. I didn't think that I lived in the U.S. I was a dance hall girl, and she said she was addicted to alcohol, wasn't very nice, and had money, and came from a family of wealthy people, and was distraught over a man, and got into a car accident and passed of a head injury. So that's pretty specific for somebody to remember that from a past life. And I asked her, like, do you think that any of that affected you in this lifetime? And I'm only reading this because it's public. It's already public knowledge on the page, right? And she says, yes, I was born to a family of alcoholics with mental illness on the other side. I've had extreme lessons this time around. I've had to work my entire life and learn to appreciate the small things. I had to overcome a lot of difficulties, and I know never to be judgmental of anybody, and to be kind to everyone overall. So let's say that Scott Davis existed in 1920, and I was born into a wealthy family, and I just had money, right? And obviously alcohol we'll just forego the fact that alcohol was illegal for part of that time. And I was just like, I'm going to party, I'm going to hang out and do whatever the heck it is that I want to do, because I have money and no responsibilities. And I do that, and I get into a relationship, and it turns out badly, and I pass. Now, let's say that I passed December 31st, 1920, and I wake up January 1st, 1921. I still have all my thoughts and memories from that past life. I'm still Scott Davis, but I have deceased and I am alive again. Am I paying for my last lifetime? And this is something we talked about a couple minutes ago, right? Are you paying for that? Do you have to make good on what you did before? Nope. You don't. You could still be that same human being, but in that time that you were deceased to now, you went to the source, to heaven, wherever it is, and you got told, like, hey, you could do better. You don't have to do better, but you should. And something inside of you says, I am going to do better. I should do better. And you wake up and you say, I'm going to do better today. you're not making up for anything in that past lifetime. There's no karma that you need to worry about. You just said, I decide I'm going to do better with the things I have. And of course, you know, if we decease and come back, we're not going to be born in the same circumstances, most likely, right? So you wake up into a family that doesn't have much, and they have a lot of issues around them, but you recognize them because you lived through them already. So now it's time to make good on the things that you couldn't the last time. And there's a lot of influence that comes from this lifetime because we're learning. And we learned the last time that living that lifetime wasn't right. So this time we're going to do a better job of being a person, a good human being. And that's what we're doing now. You're going to be a good person and a better human being. And that's just, and that's not to say because we know that there are murderers. There are bad people out there. There are people who take advantage of other people financially, emotionally, physically for their own gain. So maybe in their last time they were a really good person and they got taken advantage of. They woke up this lifetime and said, I'm going to be that person this time. And then next lifetime they're going to be like, okay, I've been taken advantage of. I've taken advantage of. Now I'm going to do the right thing. So that's maybe why we keep coming back. That's just speculatory. Can't prove it. But I just one of those things, you know. So anyways, looks like a lot of people are getting ready to go. I also have to go. One of the brothers, Larry, big man, you see my Instagram story sometime, is here. I'm going to go see what he's doing. In the meantime, be good to each other and try to enjoy what you can of having the time off, because once we get back to business, it is going to be busy. And I hope that we all come out learning something. If you have something that you want to talk about, like in this kind of fashion, we can do that. I love it. Put it up on the page here. Send me a message. Tell me what you want to talk about if you want to stay anonymous, and we'll do that. Hopefully, if you take anything away from this, you go check out Edgar Casey, and Dr. Raymond Moody for those kind of a little bit more information on what we were talking about today. Thanks for hanging out with me, and you make my day a little bit better, commenting and hanging out. So with that, let me go see what Big Larry's up to. I will talk to everybody later. Thanks so much for stopping by. You made my afternoon. I'll see you later.